Hello, I'm Jose Vega, and this is Tulsa Youth Talk. One of the issues that seems to cause problems within our youth of our city stem from natural cultural differences among its student population, a subject that lies just under the surface but is not talked about. I recently shot a video that I feel brings this issue to the table. In this program, we will examine the differences. I have important guests on our first program to discuss the matter. But first, I'd like to show you and illustrate to you just how far reaching these issues goes.
To me, and I think if you look at history, the whole concept of the American dream is kind of a myth. And I think that Thomas Jefferson was really creative or really intelligent whenever he wrote in the Declaration of Independence, the pursuit of happiness. That each person is guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but not happiness. So I think that a lot of Americans in general do get fixated on that idea of the American dream, and it's not really real. But for Latinos in general, I think the barriers that are standing in the way of their happiness, first of all, is just the feelings of rejection of their culture and their background. In some places in the U.S., that there are a lot of diverse cultures, so there's not as much pressure to assimilate. Something that I kind of think about a lot is the difference between assimilation and acculturation, which is basically you don't have to leave your own culture to absorb another culture. For example, you can go to another country, say you really like the French culture, and you can learn to speak French, and you can adopt some of their behaviors, but still, keep your own traditions if you're an American. And the same is true for Mexicans or any other immigrants. They can actually just adopt another culture without having to replace their own. But unfortunately, for a lot of Latinos, and especially students, they feel a lot of pressure to hold a lot of American standards as higher than what they come from. So they feel a lot of pressure to hold the English language as better than Spanish, and they feel a lot of pressure to hold lighter skin as being more attractive or more pretty than darker skin. It also leads into something that is a big challenge for a lot of our students, which is falling into the negative behaviors of gangs, drugs, and a place that they can find fulfillment. So basically, if you feel rejected by a mainstream society, you're going to try to create your own society where you can have power and you can feel respected. And that's what I see with a lot of students who do fall into gangs. They have natural leadership talents, right? They're the students who are very charming and can convince other people to do things. But unfortunately, in a lot of avenues in society, currently, they're looked at as inferior because maybe they don't speak English perfectly, or maybe they don't have a lot of money, or maybe just because the people who are looking at them are discriminated against them. So they aren't able to achieve success in the typical avenues, like in school or in an extracurricular activity.
Here, our guest, Mana Tahai. She's director from Racial Justice. Is that right?
Correct.
I have Archer Rice and Bria Coleman, representing Daniel Webster High School Broadcast Digital Media. Mana, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what you deal with?
Sure. My name is Mana Tahai. I work at the YWCA as the Director of Racial Justice. The YWCA's mission is eliminating racism and empowering women, and so I handle that first half of the mission, which is basically looking at racial inequity both within our organization and in the community at large, and trying to figure out positive action steps to take to start to eliminate that inequity and that disparity.
Artra, Bria, have you guys had any experience in cultural differences like discrimination or color of skin?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about discrimination is when you are entering in a store and people follow you because they think you might steal something. That's what comes to mind when I think about racial discrimination.
Have you been through that?
Yes.
How did that make you feel?
I kind of felt bad, but not really, because I know I didn't have anything to do with it. I can't change how I look, so it isn't anything that I took to heart. But some people may take it to heart. It may hurt their feelings because they didn't do anything to deserve that type of discrimination. So,
Bria?
When we go look for houses, like me and my grandma, and we go into the rich part of town, when we go there and we look for signs and things like that, and it's horrible because they all come outside and they look at us like, oh, like the black people are finna move in, the neighborhood or something like that, and it shouldn't be like that. They do that with all races, and I don't like that. I don't like blacks discriminating against whites. I don't like any of that. It should all disappear to me. That's my opinion. I could agree with Atra. That happened to me before too. And there was also a point in time where I had a teacher that was being racist towards the minority of black students in the class. So it was horrible, but I mean, we can't really do anything, to fire a teacher because of it's a teacher and they're going to take their word over ours. So I mean, that's just the way it went. So I had to deal with it for a long period of time.
So have you had discrimination at school with your teacher?
Yes. And it happens there. It happens a lot, and some students, they don't speak up about it, and some students do. Sometimes they'll answer your requests about the teacher if you go to them multiple times, or if you just speak directly to the principal or assistant principal. But going through the proper ways to finally get to the assistant principal or principal it's too long. They'll keep on doing it and keep on overreaching their teacher bounds and stuff like that, and I don't like that. I wish that would change. Also, it's just with racism, like, I don't think that, black kids always call white people racist because, they say the N-word. Well, they say it too, so that gives them a right to say it. So I wish that they would eliminate that word. It was a racial slur that was used back in the day, and I don't like it. I don't say it myself, so I would wish that it would be gone, and black kids, especially black people, will quit saying it.
Yeah. Mana, due to these experiences that you've heard, what can you, a way to help them?
Well, the first thing I want to just touch on before I get to what we can do to help is that I think both of you have described something really interesting, which is that the way that racism looks in 2010, in this supposedly kind of post-racial era, is it looks a little bit more subtle, right? You can't look at it and name it exactly what it is, except you just know. And so what happens is that becomes a lot more psychologically damaging for people. It's so interesting because the difference between having someone just deny you at the store and say you can't come in here because you're black, or the people on the street who came out to kind of look at you but didn't overtly say anything, if they were to give you a very clear message that you're not welcome here, like we used to have sundown town signs that say whites only, the psychological impact of that, even though it seems like it's a lot harsher, is actually less than what you all experience, the descriptions that you've given, and similar things like that. And the reason is because it's not very clear, and so people start to second guess themselves. Was that really what that was about? Am I overthinking it? Am I being too sensitive? And then so what do? Because you want validation, you go and talk to someone else. Well, this happened to me. What do you think that was about? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, that might have been racial, but sometimes they'll say, you're just overthinking it. That woman just follows everybody around because they're concerned about security, or she was just folding clothes, she wasn't following you around, or those people were just curious about who might move into the neighborhood, right? So you start to hear different kinds of I think probably well-intentioned justification, because we've made racism this ugly word that no one wants to be associated with, right? So what happens is all that doubt, all that second guessing becomes a lot more hurtful and harmful to the mental health of people of color who have to endure those little bitty slights against them that add up over the course of their day and over their lifetimes. They're called, the technical word is microaggressions, but basically those little experiences that you just described have actually a lot more impact.